Welcome to the Atheists of Florida YouTube channel. We are pleased to offer some of the most significant speakers and profound issues of our times. If you like today's video, please hit the like button. If you have already subscribed, thank you. If not, you know what to do.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, and thank you for having me here. I hope that after today that you'll learn a thing or two about Hispanics in general, and of course, this is just a little sliver of what it's all about. But at the end, I'd be interested in seeing if there's stuff that you didn't learn, a single thing you didn't learn out of this. So I hope at least a nugget or two of information that would be helpful. So let me tell you, I got a lot of slides, so I'm going to try to go through them rather quickly because I think speaking to each other is probably better. But let me tell you about the agenda for today. Let me start by saying what qualifies me to speak for Latinos is nothing. I just happen to be Hispanic and, secular, and a lot of people ask me to talk about so what you see here, a lot of it is my opinion. A lot of it is, I try to gather data as much as possible. And so hopefully you'll learn a little bit of Spanish today. You'll learn a little bit of the cultures. And so let's start with lesson one. You see the wording right up above, agenda, is written the same way in Spanish. So there, you already know one word in Spanish. Except that the G sounds like an H, so agenda. And so there you go. See, now you've learned some Spanish. And we'll talk about why should we care about Hispanics in the US. And also, I'm going to have you become Latino for today. Well, if we had any younger people, I'd say ready for scholarships maybe, but probably not. Please, if I say something that you didn't understand and need clarification, we're a small group, just interrupt or make a comment. All right, so let's first start with the question that it's always in everybody's mind. Okay, is it Latino? Is it Hispanic? What is it? What do we call people? And I'm not even going to go into the Latinx and all the other stuff for now. So Hispanic refers to, so we're going to technically Hispanic refers to language, while Latino refers to geography. So that means that Hispanic, if you're Hispanic, that means that you and your ancestry come from a country where they speak Spanish. So it doesn't include Brazil, they speak Portuguese there, or Haiti, where they speak French, or Belize, where they speak English. It just means a country where they speak Spanish. And then if you refer to someone as Latino, then it's someone that the ancestry comes from Latin America. So it excludes Spain, because Spain is Europe. And so that's what it means. So it means someone that comes from Latin America. For our purposes here today, I'm going to use the terms interchangeably. So whether Hispanic or Latino, I'll just, so don't be reading too much into it. The US government uses both terms. The West Coast tends to prefer the Latino part. The East Coast tends to prefer the Hispanic term. And I tell people, I don't care what you call me, so long as you call me. So, and then of course, there are some people that say, I'm neither. Forget this, I'm Mexican, I'm Native, I'm Native American Mexican. So don't be confusing me with Hispanics or Latin, those are European terms, and don't include me in that. And again, so like with a lot of things nowadays is, you want to call yourself anything, fine, who cares, right? We'll call you whatever makes you more comfortable. And that's the same thing with this. In general, Hispanics don't care whether you call them Latino or Hispanic, it doesn't matter. All right, so quick history about that you probably didn't learn this in school. I figured I put a couple of children there, a couple of sisters. And so the term Latino, Hispanic, Latinx, Latinat, Latine, as I've seen, is not really a race, it's an ethnicity. And so you'll see people from all shades, all colors, from white to black to everything in between. Native Americans, all Native Americans share the same DNA. And so many Latinos that you come across are actually Native Americans. They're Native Americans from Central Americas. And so actually the two girls that you see there are not sisters. Those two girls, the top one is a Navajo Indian, and the bottom one is a girl from Guatemala. So, but you can see in their faces how similar they are because they're the same people. So Native Americans share, the same DNA. As far as, so today, just so we get a perspective in the country, 3 out of the 4 most populous states in the United States came from Mexico or Spain, and that's Florida, Texas, and California. Those are the most, 3 of the 4 most populous states in this country. And in the US, so this is interesting, in the US, more people speak Spanish in the US than in any other country in the world except for Mexico. So there are more Spanish speakers in the US than in Colombia, than in Spain or Venezuela or Chile or Panama or any other country except for Mexico, which I think is pretty interesting. We don't see ourselves in this country that way, that we have more Spanish speakers. So in thinking and selling books and things of this sort, a lot of people think of Latin America and no one ever considers, a few authors or people think, US might be a good market. Anyway, so why should we care about Hispanics or Latinos in the US? First of all, it's a lot of them. There are 62 million Hispanics in the United States. That's a lot of people. And Hispanics have been in the Americas for, in the United States for a long time. And when it comes to young people today, 1 in 5 children, so 20% of the kids are Hispanic. But by 2050, it's going to be 2 in 5 kids that are going to be Hispanic. And just to put things in perspective, African Americans in this country are 14% of the population, while Latinos are 19%. So we have a lot more Latinos than we have Blacks in the United States. And a lot of people didn't even know that. And so I tell people, if you don't have a Latino as a relative, pretty soon you will, because, being 20% of the population today. All right, so let's talk about la religión, another Spanish, the religion. See, another, just put a little accent, now it just becomes Spanish. So since the 2000s, the religion has been declining among Hispanics, which is a good thing. Certainly the Catholic Church has suffered a big loss. And by 2013 and even till today, only about half the Hispanics are Catholic, which, most people find that unbelievable. A lot of them have become Protestant, evangelical, etc. And 18% count themselves as unaffiliated. In other words, they believe in God, but they don't go to church. They don't give money to any church, which is just fine with me. Now, if you look at the Mormon Church, the fastest growing group that they have is Latinos. They target Hispanic Americans very much to join their ranks. There are, and just so other churches don't stay behind, 265,000 Latinos have converted to Islam in the United States. Now, talk about going from a crappy religion to an even crappier religion. What's even worse is that the majority are women. And so, you go from a religion that's already, very machista, very, where women have far less privilege, to one where they have virtually no privilege at all. And so going to the non-religious Hispanics, there are 8 million today. About 12% are non-religious, and I'll take credit for all of that. It was me that deconverted them. So after my humbleness, let's talk a little bit about skin color, what I said. So it turns out that skin color also hurts Hispanics. The darker you are, the more discrimination you get, and so there are a lot of Latinos. Not all Latinos are brown or tan, and so the ones that are white and assimilate right away, they make sure that they they don't sort of identify as Hispanic. So you have to be careful when you're talking to somebody, and because you never know, they could be Hispanic. Because again, it's an ethnicity, not a race. They come. I have a friend. His name is Carlos Chang, and if you think his parents are Chinese, you're absolutely right. He was born in Panama. His parents are Chinese. He doesn't speak any Chinese, but he speaks only Spanish. But he's Asian. And we're not going to talk too much about cryptozoology and sort of false things, but two ones that you may come across. One is called the Chupacabra. You might have heard of that. Mythologies and so on. In La Llorona, it's about this woman that lost her children, and now she goes at night stealing children. So my grandmother used to scare me with La Llorona, means the crier. And so there are some myths that are part of the culture. Now, as far as Latino language, nowadays we hear a lot about, hey, we need diversity, we need to assimilate, we need to work together, but you still have a lot of people that are saying, yep, I don't understand what you're saying. Assimilate, nah, that sounds like Spanish to me. But anyway, so what you'll find is that not all Hispanics speak Spanish, or Mexican, as some of my redneck friends will say. You speak Mexican. And so I'll take this opportunity to make fun of my own parents my parents have been here for 50 years, and they came in their 30s, and they in the early 30s. And and so my mom, when she says you, she sounds like she's saying Jew. So she will say, how are Jew? And my dad speaks about junque, means junkyard. And so there are all these words that are made up with English, so they become this fusion of Spanish and English. So instead of market, you say they made up a new word, marqueta. Park, parquear. Fax, faxear. All these words that just are used all the time and become part of sort of the language. So sometimes we have to, if you're trying to keep the Spanish language, you have to make a big effort and try not to get these words sort of mixing with the regular Spanish. So Spanglish is fun. I think it's funny. So here are three examples of Spanglish. The top one, says no hay trick or treat. It's trick or treat. So that's what that is supposed to meaning. There's no, and then the one below is more clear. No candy. That's how. If you were to pronounce write the pronunciation in Spanish of what candy sounds like, that's how you would spell it. And then of course the one is, they went and spent money on this, on this sign where it said, the others were homemade, but this one actually, no jobs here. Now the jobs, this is how, it's just the sound, but there's no such word in Spanish. And so I think someone just said, hey, this is what it sounds like. Let's just write it that way. But anyway, but we do hear that, speaking several languages is good for you, is good to improve memory, cognition, creativity, and although we still have to be careful because, I've had the phone or the computer, change words when I'm writing something. Embarrassed becomes embarazado, which means pregnant. So you go from being embarrassed to being pregnant, and or I use the word guapo and changes it into guano, which is literally batshit. So it's I sometimes I tell kids, I talk to kids a lot, and I say, look, if you're going to speak this thing, Spanglish, you're not going to speak English and you're not going to speak Spanish, and it's not going to help you for anything. So don't do that. Now, there are some advantages of being Latino and speaking another language, speaking Spanish. And so I thought it was funny that the newspaper heading over there, this county is bragging that their AP scores went up because the native Spanish speakers were taking Spanish AP tests and improving the scores for the county. And then among Latinos, we make, we say, you pretend not to speak Spanish or English, depending on the awkward situation you find yourself in. So that way you don't get into too much trouble. But so speaking other languages is, many ways of expressing your thoughts and ideas. It develops different parts of your brain from what I hear. And of course, if it's Spanish, you learn to pronounce the R's, roll those R's. Uh, all right, so I'm gonna, how do you pronounce? So you have to be thinking that the words don't mean what you think they mean sometimes. So here's a little trivia. How do you pronounce this word and what does it mean? And the pronunciation is negar, and it means to negate. But I've seen people look at that word and go, oh, what are you saying? Oh, yeah. So anyway, the accents. You've seen in Spanish, the accents. This is, I think, a good example. So you see the in papa, it has a little accent there, and años has a little tilde. You remove those two things and look how it changes the meaning of the sentence. So that's why now I don't know if people can read, if they may not be able to read that, but it basically goes from my dad is 47 years old to my potato has 47 assholes. So just two little a tilde and an accent. And again, the practical Spanglish, in Spanish, no words begins with the word s. And so a lot of time, like my parents, they can't pronounce any word that begins with an s because there's just no word in Spanish. And so they tend to put an E in front. So what you're saying there is there's no Sprite, is what that's supposed to be there. And of course, going back and forth, translating and things like that, it's always tough because you should always try to translate the meaning of things, what it was meant, the idea, rather than the words. And so that's why it's nearly impossible to translate using a dictionary. So now there are a lot of stereotypes about Hispanics. And so we're going to look at a few of them. You see that, you have in TV shows, especially, you will see that there is some talented guy that is just being ruined for being in a gang, etc. That the Latinas, that the women are all, sex kittens, that they're all, very sexy and trying to, bubblehead kind of thing. That all Latinos eat tacos. So actually, only Mexico eats tacos. The rest of the other, countries in Latin America, tacos is not a thing unless you go specifically to a Mexican restaurant like we do here. We all love soccer and spicy foods. Again, Mexico is really the only country that has really spicy food. The rest of Latin America doesn't have very spicy foods. And now the love of soccer is like someone saying everyone in the US loves baseball. Some people do, some people don't. But certainly soccer is perhaps the most loved game in the world in just about every culture. And about Latinos having, Latinos have big families. Actually, well, my wife thinks that our only son is one too many. And I like to think that he's worth 5. And so there you go. We can think that we have big families or small families. But no, in general, it's like anything. Having a big family is a product more of an economy, education and the economics of a family than it is of anything else. So, and then of course, the thing that, Latinos or Mexicans are lazy, and that's just, again, stereotype, nothing of the sort, for sure. Anyway, so the other assumption is that, Latinos, most of them, if not all of them, are illegal immigrants, especially in the political winds that have been blowing in this country over the past few years. And so you look at, this is a picture from Fox News where they're saying, Trump cuts aid to 3 Mexican countries. And so there's a map down there where it says, there's Mexico, there's soccer Mexico, meat Mexico, which is where Argentina is. Where my ancestry comes from is cocaine Mexico, Colombia, and et cetera. So, our news organizations are not doing us any favors by providing, not just misinformation, but really uneducating people, giving them the wrong information. And of course, a lot of people are, I guess, again, they they're called, you're illegal in this country. This is not your country. Get out, etc. And we already know to this group. I'm sure I have to say that the proper term is really undocumented immigrant rather than illegal. Illegal tends to imply that humans are illegal, and that if somehow your birthplace makes you a legal or an illegal human being. And but anyway. There's also the myth that undocumented immigrants or Hispanics in general, that they're moochers, that they're here, they don't pay their fair share, they're taking advantage of our taxes. Well, so just looking at the undocumented immigrants, and again, whether it doesn't matter where we sit in the political spectrum on illegal immigration, these are facts. The fact is that undocumented immigrants pay more in taxes than the top 1% of the earners in this country, which is a shame. The poor, so it's the poor paying the poor tax, and I mean we know that there's such a thing. We also have, so it was a few years ago, it came out that almost $12 billion a year are paid by these moochers, by these illegal immigrants, while we saw a billionaire's tax for a few years that was $750. For a billionaire. We all know who we're talking about. So anyway, that is just to put things in perspective a little bit. Continuing with, sort of these myths, the Latinos, are on food stamps and taking, they're not taking their fair share, et cetera, et cetera. We can see that that this is not the case. This is statistics from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and you see that Hispanics of any race are 10%. So we're 20% of the population, 10% of the population are part of the total number of people that receive aid in that sense. All right, so the other thing is stereotypes, that they steal our jobs. Those damn immigrants, they come and steal our jobs. And of course, the problem is that the jobs that are taken by these people are jobs that no one wants to do. I don't see a bunch of people fighting to clean toilets. Those are jobs no one wants to do. I know someone that works in a factory where his job is to gut chickens, is to literally with his hands pull the guts out of chickens, and you're literally up to your knees in chicken guts, and there's nobody wants to do that 8 hours a day every day. And so there are a lot of very tough jobs in this country that people just don't want to do. And that's what gives the idea that, so the problem is that you're also seen as that. A couple of years ago, I went to a CIO conference. So I'm a CIO for the company. For our company, it's over 2,000 employees, and there were 1,000 CIOs. This is a global, a national meeting of CIOs. And out of 1,000 CIOs, there were 4 of us that were Hispanic, and that's it. And so, but if you go to landscaping, if you go to picking produce from the field, yes, you're going to find that the number of Hispanics is a lot greater. So we are overrepresented in certain menial jobs that are very tough, and very much underrepresented in the good jobs, CIOs, CFOs, and the C-suite in corporations. It's just, again, just a fact. Now, again, to talk about translating and encouraging you never to try to translate things unless you speak a language. I'm going to, here are a couple of examples from some translations that were done by some companies. And so Coors had a slogan, "Turn it loose," which in Spanish became, you just go ahead and suffer from diarrhea. Not a good slogan to have if you're drinking beer. There was in Miami when the Pope came some years ago, T-shirts that said, "I saw the Pope," because they didn't write it correctly, with a capital letter and L instead of La. It became, "I saw the potato," which is probably the same thing anyway. Probably got as much wisdom out of either one. Frank Perdue, some of you might have seen this. "It takes a strong man to make a tender chicken." When they translated that, it just became, "It takes a sexually aroused man to make a chicken affectionate." So that could make for some fun commercials, you know. Braniff Airlines. I see some of you might be old enough to remember Braniff Airlines. They were, you know, and so I remember when they had one that says "Fly in Leather" because they wanted to say that every seat was like a first class seat, and it came out just, you know, fly naked, because, you know, they again translating with that. And then GM some years ago they came out with the Chevy Nova, and except that Nova in Spanish sounds like no va, it means it doesn't go, which just becomes really a bad slogan for a car if your car just doesn't go. And then, of course, you know, we come to the part of names, you know, what's in a name. James Roday, who's a good actor, and he's in movies and TV series. His actual name is James David Rodriguez. And Martin Sheen, we all know his name is Carlos Estevez. And Vanna White is actually from Puerto Rico. Raquel Welch, her name is Jo Raquel Tejada from Bolivia. And then, of course, there's me. My name, when I, you know, for the longest time, it was Juan David Tamayo. And the problem that I encountered was that I began to suspect that people were treating me different when I told them that my name was Juan. And so, because, you know, we tend to use our first names in general. And so I decided to make an experiment. And for about 2 years, I told half the people I met, I told them my name was David, which is my middle name. And the other half, I told them my name was Juan. And I did notice a difference in how I was treated. And I said, well, I don't need to be treated that way. Let me just get rid of that. And so when I write my name, David and Tamayo, some people think it's Japanese, some people, you know, it's not as much a giveaway. And so things changed. Even at work, I hate to admit it, but even at work, I got promoted more readily, it seemed. And so again, what's in the name, right? So this brings us really to the, you know, it's all fun and game, as my mom used to say, it's all fun and games until someone starts getting hurt, right? When you're tussling with your roughing it with your siblings. And so they've, you know, done surveys, you know, have you been or do you feel that you've been discriminated against? And they've asked Hispanics, and, you know, about half of them have said yes. And so what is real, what is perceived, et cetera, it's always a tough call. I mean, sometimes obviously someone's calling you you're a dumb spick, then, you know, yeah, there's no doubt in there. But, you know, if you're not getting promoted or you've been passed over, is it your performance really, or is it really that, you know, but you look at it in the media, you can see, you know, these are facts. Again, you look in a movie and you tell me what's more likely, that the gardener is going to be called Jose, Ramon, Juan, or Steve? Well, you know, it's not going to be Steve. The chances are is that he's going to be called, you know, Jose or Juan, or, you know. And the same for Latinas in movies. You know, if you look at how many of them have been cast as judges or architects, entrepreneurs, no, the majority, all of them, Jennifer Lopez and all of, you know, all as maids. And so, you know, again, that's the kind of soft discrimination, is in the kinds of things that you get and the opportunities. I mean, I'm not saying we should get any gifts or anything, but just the opportunity, equal opportunity, is really the only thing we want. And so you can see why people change their names. You can see why people say, well, as soon as I can get rid of my accent, and as soon as I can, pretend to be white, and if my skin is light enough, then I'm golden, and I'm not going to look back, because, you know, I need to take care of me. And so you see Hispanics ridiculed all the time on TV, lots of cartoons, and, you know, even in the liberal, what I consider liberal media, MSNBC, in the upper right-hand corner, you can see that, you know, Cinco de Mayo, sombrero, and drinking, and it's way too early to be drinking. You know, again, it's not what we're looking for. Again, same thing. You see a white man mowing the lawn, he's retired. You see a Latino mowing the lawn, he's an immigrant. You know, it's, and then there's more blatant stuff like, you know, the memes that you see in the internet that are more discriminatory, where you see, hey, what's Mexico's national sport? Cross country, because they're crossing illegally. Or you see you know, this driver's license that, you know, talks about Mexifornia, and, you know, bottom right in there is, you know, title to drive, go to college, purchase guns, vote, and all these things that you shouldn't have if you are that. So we see in the media, and we see across a lot of the internet and all of that, where they, including political figures, don't want to mention names that are obvious, that they're all, you know, they're criminals, they're gangs, steal cars, they carry knives, you know, they're rapists, but some of them are okay, according to that. That they all have big families, that they can dance salsa and merengue. My wife can't dance to save her life. None of those dances. And that, of course, that the men are, you know, machistas, they abuse women and they treat him like dirt, etc. Again, all myths that are part of discrimination. But discrimination is real. And some of you might remember a few years ago, at a basketball game, NBA, Sebastian de la Cruz, 11-year-old boy that you see in the picture there, born, raised, in fact, his family has been in San Antonio, in Texas for eons, for several generations. And he sang he had a beautiful voice, sang the American anthem, and the national anthem. And the internet just lit up, just abusing the boy. I can't believe they had the nerve to put this beaner to sing the national anthem of America. You know, Mexican kids singing the national anthem. Now that's pretty fucked up. These are the kinds of the things that were being said about this little kid. You know, why is a foreigner singing the national anthem, etc. So, you know, a lot of people don't realize that the clothes that he's wearing, that this is actually part of the culture of Texas, part of the culture of what used to be Mexico. They're no less American. It's no different than when Italian Americans in New York or the Irish have, you know, St. Patrick's parades and etc. No one says, hey, St. Patrick's parade, be an American, you know. So that's the kinds of things. And it starts turning into something more virulent and something more hateful. So this is just from, you know, from the news within a couple of years. 8 people were attacked for speaking Spanish. So remember I was saying how great it is to be bilingual and to speak several languages and all of that. I have, you know, I have experienced it, and I've seen people be abused for speaking Spanish in public. And so you see, here's a white woman threatening a Puerto Rican customer that she's going to get deported. Well, I hope you all know that Puerto Rico is part of the U.S. Anyone born in Puerto Rico is a U.S. citizen, and they go to the military and do all the same thing, you know, all the things that Americans do. They are Americans like any other. But you know, ignorance knows no bounds. Here's a lawyer, educated man, okay, threatening to call ICE on workers because they were speaking Spanish in New York. So, you know, here's an Air Force member, Ciara Mercado, again, assaulted and verbally assaulted in Starbucks for speaking Spanish with one of the employees there that, you know, when she asked for the drink. Here, again, another case in 2018 where a bystander gets to defend 2 women after they're told to speak English and having a big argument. Or another customer in this, I think this was a Burger King, where they are telling the manager to go back to Mexico. He's Puerto Rican, but go back to Mexico. Or Montana Border Patrol. So now, you know, with the authorities, when someone in authority stopped 2 women for speaking Spanish. And he said, he admitted, I stopped you because you were speaking Spanish and we're in Montana. And so, you know, show me your pay. And they were US born. So, you know, they were Hispanic, but they're, you know, from the US. And so people who complain about the language perhaps need to be reminded that if you look in California, you know, Spanish was spoken there 79 years before English was spoken there. And if you look at Arizona, I believe that's Arizona, 149 years or 147 years before English in Texas. And you had, same in Louisiana and in other places where well, Louisiana was French, but a lot of other places like Florida, for instance, they belong to Spain and to other, or there. So Spanish is the oldest non-native American language spoken in the U.S. So it's actually older than English, because in 1609, when the English came to the Americas, there were already Spanish people in here in Florida and in the West Coast and in the Southwest, and all the way to Montana. The word Montana is actually, it was montaña, mountain. That was the name of the state. And so that, again, the problem is now it goes to who's got the power. And so you see here in North Carolina, you have this, the quote from the sheriff, notice his badge, and it says, if you stop a Mexican, don't write a citation, just arrest them. Because again, the assumption is a Mexican, it's illegal, they need to go back to Mexico, go back to their country. And this is a poster, this was a billboard in Arizona, okay, where again, the sheriff is saying this is our most serious public safety issue and national security to America. And there's a picture of a Latino family in there. What does that make him except that in nothing but a target? It makes families and Hispanics targets. And again, who's more likely to be asked to show their papers in Arizona? Because at one point, I think they stopped that, but before, not until a couple of years ago, the police could stop you and say, demonstrate to me, show me your paper, show me that you are legally in this country. And so who of these two is more likely? Selena Gomez, who was born in the United States, or Justin Bieber, who is from Canada? And again, it's how you look. And so that look, how brown you are, how that's, again, here's Alaska Representative Don Young. My father had a ranch. We used to have 50 or 60 wetbacks to pick tomatoes. That's a very condescending type of, and then the problem is, if you look Latino and you're not, then too bad for you. It sucks to be you. In the left, in one side, there were armed supporters, Trump supporters, that asked a Navajo legislator if he was legal because he looked Latino. Remember, as I said, it's the same DNA, And then in the right-hand side, there was a fight or an argument because a white woman slapped, was having a fight with a Native American, and she was telling him to go back to Mexico, even though she's a native, a certified Native American. So even the Native Americans need to go back where they came from, according to a lot of people. And then you're starting to see this, so this is from 2 days ago, this news right here. Netflix show Uncoupled cuts a Latina housekeeper. Remember what I said about Latinas in housekeeping? Well, someone saw that this was coming out and said, look, enough is enough. Enough, we've already have enough cleaning ladies being Latinos. Come on, give us a different role. So discrimination exists. Sometimes it's more subtle, sometimes it's not. And speaking Spanish is usually a way where things get started readily. Very fast, it can go because they assume immediately, oh, you're speaking Spanish, you're an illegal immigrant, and or you're talking about me. Because if you're speaking Spanish, not that you're practicing, and by the way, the United States has no official language. There's no official language in the United States, and so I'd be okay if they said, look, we'll make an official language where the business of any county or government, it needs to be in a common language. Let's be that English. But in the United States, they decided that we'll leave it free because who knows what we'll speak 1,000 years from now. So let's just leave it like that. And so the last slide is really about HAFree. We try to, our slogan is advancing Latino culture through science and reason. Education is the best secularizing, is the best equalizer. My parents came here as immigrants. They worked in factories. Remember when the country used to have factories? That's when they were here. They used to make textiles in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Rhode Island was the place where the first factory, actually, the first factory was a textile factory that was put in place. And until the late 70s and early 80s, there were factories there. And and we were very poor. Of course, I didn't know that I was poor, which, that means is you have a happy childhood when you don't know you're poor. And we had a lot of fun and all of that. But my parents were on top of us all the time: education, 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 education. And so I'm really, really grateful for a social program called Upward Bound, where I was given the opportunity to, from 9th grade through 12th, every summer and every day after school, I went to school. I went to additional, I took English classes, science, math, everything. And because the school that I went to was really also very poor and was not really a very good school, this was a saver, because when the time of the SATs came on, I scored pretty good, and I decided to apply to lots of schools, and I got accepted into all but one, I think. I was put on hold at University of Pennsylvania, but I had good teachers that encouraged me to apply. And I got into George Washington University, I got into Brown, I got into Boston U, and I thought Washington, D.C. is a really nice city. I had won a trip before there to meet Senator Pell, where the Pell Grant comes from. He was from Rhode Island, so I got to meet him and have pictures with him. And so now, years later, I'm educated, my siblings are educated, we took loans, all of that. But that we get to pay all of that when you have a good education. And now with my children and my siblings' children, there's no question about it that they're going to go to college and they're going to get educated. And even if one of them says, look, I don't want to go to college, I just want to be a truck driver. Fine, just be the best truck driver you could be, just be the best you can be. And so that is what we want to do in HAFree, is encourage a lot of the Hispanics, especially the ones that have little education, and there's a lot. And remember in the 80s, we had this wave of people from Central America that were leaving due to the wars that we're having there, that that the United States was sponsoring. And so a lot of them settled here. The problem is that a lot of these folks never went to school themselves. A lot of them didn't know how to read and write themselves. And so it becomes a vicious cycle, because then religion really gets in there, and they take advantage of it. There are no critical thinking skills. And so they're a lot easier to put them in religions. And then once they're in those religions, it's very difficult to take them out, because now they have to admit that their entire lives, possibly, that they've made a mistake, and that it's very difficult to show that to someone that they are wrong when they've been wrong for a long time, because it's really kind of renouncing everything that they've believed in and have done all their lives. And so we try, but we know that education is the great secularizer. Education. So we try to provide scholarships. We try to provide mentorship, and we go to visit the local schools in Northern Virginia, Washington, and Maryland, to talk to the students, especially high school students are really primed for this kind of thing, to tell the students that we teach them critical thinking skills, skepticism, and all of that. And they're primed because they're at an age where they want to be rebels, they want to be their own themselves. And so it becomes you give them a good weapon to become better thinkers and rationalizers of things. So that's the kind of thing that we do. So we try to create a Latino culture of reason, critical thinking, and of course the church-state separation, the idea of, and that we're not telling them what to think. We're not telling them, we're just teaching them how to think and how to apply that skepticism and that critical thinking and that reason to not just to everything, and saying, look, anything that says they're exempt from being reasoned with or from being skeptically looked at, those are the things you need to double look, because those are the things that are, such as a religion. And so the biggest thing that we do is we tell them, look, it's very simple. If you look as an example, a teacher, when a teacher gives a lesson, the teacher will say, any questions, please ask and beg for questioning. When a priest gives a sermon in a church, he says, and esta es la palabra de Dios. This is the word of God. In other words, don't question it. Just go with it. And there's no questions. No, not taking any questions. And just believe it and pass the donation. And so we want to make sure that people, that Hispanics, since they're being targeted by all of these religions, Pentecostals especially, for example, that we provide tools for them to think a little bit more critically. So let me see how long that take. Man, I went. Okay, so it took a while, but like I said before, we can write books about this, and there's all kinds of topics, all kinds of things that we can do, and I want to make sure that I mean, there are a lot of times where I get the question, well, what can I do to help out? And it's like asking for the formula for Coca-Cola. It's very difficult because it's different for different people. It's different things, and we should start with the fact that we don't have a Hispanic culture, that we have Hispanic cultures, different kinds of cultures. And so it's no different than someone saying, oh, you speak English. Oh, if you're British, you're American, you're South African, you're Australian, you're all the same. If you speak a particular language. No, not quite. And so anyway, I hope this gave you a bit of an idea. Like I said, it was just a primer. So from my own experiences and my own thinking. So I like to see if there are any questions, comments, insults. I got thick skin.
I will, people need to raise their electronic hands so it doesn't devolve into chaos. One thing that did come up is that was not Martin Sheen in the picture. It was
Oh,
Charlie
it
Sheen.
was Charlie Sheen. Yes, yes, yes.
I saw, but not a big deal. Those things happen. Just because it came up. Jim
Same
Peterson.
last name though.
Yes.
Esteves.
Well, father son.
Yeah.
Um, and Jim Peterson has a question.
Yes, I was one of the most powerful means by which people can be addressed in terms of a defense of free thought and free thinking and all the values you've been enumerating here is that in the society, in the culture, there is somewhere embedded a strong tradition of scholarship, of critical thinking, examples of scientific investigations or progress, that sort of thing that can be that can be readily referenced, that people have a connection to. How deep are those kinds of connections in Hispanic culture?
So in the Hispanic, so I will continue to refer the things that I talk about as the U.S. Hispanics, because the rest of Latin America, you have different cultures and different things in there. But in the United States, we have a couple of issues. One is that you have people that are very educated and people that are not very educated at all. And in recent years, you've been told that you should be proud to be ignorant. And that your Google search is as good as your PhD and things of the sort. So that's one of the issues within Latin America, within Hispanics ourselves. There's also a lot of discrimination. So and it has to do with, again, shades of skin, and it has to do with Native Americans. And so you rarely see a white, blonde Argentinian marrying a Central American, Native American, that is, brown or darker skin. And within, you will see people from Chile looking down on people from Bolivia. Who's, even if it's not them, they were all born here, but their ancestry, there's still this, and so amongst firemen, we're stepping on our own hoses and not really working together to get things done. And that is, dividing and conquering. That technique works really well with the Hispanics. It has worked really well. We are the largest minority group in the country, and you see African Americans having their act together a lot better. And it has a lot to do with that discrimination and everything. So in my family, saying a word wrongly in English or Spanish, half the family will jump on your case to tell you. So they take great pride in saying things correctly as best possible. And in other families that I'm familiar with, you could speak however you want, and it doesn't matter the travesty that is coming out of your mouth. It's okay so long as someone sort of got the idea. And so what we're trying to tell people is, look, there's no culture is like religion, is learned. Culture is passed on from people, is humanly created, and therefore, as there are good things and bad things in every culture. And if your culture says that you have to stone somebody for infidelity, well, that's a bad thing, and so we should drop that. With Latinos, for instance, if any of you get invited to a Latino party and it's for 8 p.m., don't show up at 8 p.m. because you'll find everybody in their underwear. It's people, start the party at 10 p.m. And so the idea, one of the things I tell Hispanics is, look, one aspect of American culture that is really good is timeliness. If you're going to a business meeting, their meeting is at 7 p.m. You're there at 7. You're there before, in case there's a. And so I said, that's we are not just bilingual, but we are also bicultural. So let's integrate all the good things of the different cultures, and then drop those things that are not good. And so I'm not one that sees culture as a sacred cow. I see culture almost no different than religion, in the sense that it's created by humans, and therefore it's not a saint. It's not holy. We can make changes to it according to what's best for us and for the community and for everybody. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Although I think there are Latino inventors and scientists and writers, philosophers, whose contribution makes it possible for us to reference them in terms of educating people about.
Yeah, and like I said, the problem is a lot of the times when that is the case, there's either well, until very recently, until even in World War II, Latinos would not get, rarely would get a Purple Heart because you're Latino. It wasn't just Latinos. I mean, let's admit it. It was anyone that was not, white, and so Native Americans didn't get their fair share, and blacks and things. So, but it is. I try not to point out to people that are outside the United States, because then that's a different culture. That's a different countries. Bolivia, I'm not from Bolivia. We hear, so the idea is always trying to show them, examples over here. One person who recently passed away, well, I'll talk about that later. Let's get to the next question, because I was here.
Thank you, Jim. Rick Pearson, unmute yourself and.
Okay. Well, two comments. There's Charlie Sheen, Martin Sheen, but the other son kept his name, Emilio Estevez.
And he did pretty good keeping his name, didn't he?
Yeah. And then the other one was, I saw that video of the Native American girl in pink slapping that white woman.
Yeah.
And it was very satisfying. You do have to watch, because it's uncalled for if you don't see that the white woman touches her first.
Yeah.
I mean, you want the white woman to get slapped for what she's saying, but legally it's not justified till the white woman touches her, and then she gets slapped. And it's very satisfying.
Yeah. Only because she looked it. So it's not, and there are a lot of times when people have been speaking Spanish and do now. There was another case I'm trying to remember where two Native Americans were practicing their native language, and someone jumped in to say the same thing. Hey, stop speaking Spanish, and they weren't even speaking Spanish.
Well, in this one, I think they were telling the white woman was telling the cashier not to even serve this other lady. So it wasn't just calling her names, which she did also, but it was like, no, don't serve her.
Because she's illegal.
Yeah,
Yeah. Show me the papers.
Anyway, sorry. Thanks.
No, good comments,
Thanks,
Rick.
Rick. We had a similar incident one time. We were in a French restaurant, and the American customers were complaining because the waiters spoke French. It was like,
Which I don't know. I tend to think so. One of the things that I see a lot is people that go to say like a Vietnamese restaurant, and they have black waiters, and they feel that this is not authentic. And with Hispanics, what happens a lot is they have them working in the back so you go to Chinese restaurants, you go to all kinds of restaurants, Russian restaurants, whatever, and but the front they put in the person from that country. So now people walk out and say, yeah, I had this authentic Vietnamese food that was actually made by some Mexicans, but they didn't know. They don't know it was made by Salvadorians or whatever.
Okay, so Ari, you have some questions or comments?
Hey, hello. Saludos from Puerto Rico, Tamayo.
Gracias. Un abrazo.
Igual. I had two questions. First, do you see in the States companies targeting the Hispanics like tobacco and maybe the alcohol and companies like Herbalife more aggressive in the Hispanic population than others? Is that
Herbalife,
a thing that you think?
Yeah, Herbalife for sure. Herbalife gets most of their profit from Hispanics. Herbalife is this supplements that do nothing, and they cost a lot of money, and it's a pyramid scheme kind of thing. As far as the others, I don't watch television that much, and so I don't watch Spanish channels, and so I really don't see what gets put in there a lot. When I visit my parents through technology nowadays, they see channels. When they see channels in Spanish, they see channels directly from South America that are with South American commercials and all of that. So I really don't know the answer to that question. I know that religions do for sure. As far as products, I think that junk food does, McDonald's, and that I've seen that a lot. So not certainly not high end. I've never seen a whiskey commercial, for instance, that are targeting Hispanics, but I have seen beer commercials. Of course, you can argue that I've seen a lot of Mexican beers targeting Americans, like Modelo and Dos Equis and etc. Yeah, I know, and also there may be some more targeting being done depending on neighborhoods.
And one last thing, do you see a generational divide within the Hispanic community also, as we see on the other demographic of the U.S. in terms of thinking, approaching religion and the other thing?
Yes, and that's a good point. Thank you for bringing that, Ari. There is the good thing is that young Hispanics are less religious than their parents. And technology has a lot to do with it. When they go and say, when they start getting in social media and they make some religious comments or things like that, their beliefs get questioned more. And so what we have seen as far as millennials and the Z generation and these other generations, they are Latinos haven't been immune to that. So that's good. That's really good news. Where is not good news is in the educational part, because until about 7 or 8 years ago, the high school graduation rate for Hispanics in the United States was really bad. It was about 49 to 50%. Only half the Hispanics were graduating high school. And so now that has gone up to about 79, almost 80%, which is great. Okay. And now the Hispanics are starting college. The problem is they're not finishing college. They're just, they go for a couple of years or even less, and now they have college debt and they don't have a college degree. And so the dropout rate is high, mostly because of lack of preparation, coming from schools that are not really preparing students to go to college. And our way of educating kids in this country is, if you live in a nice, rich neighborhood, your school is, has 3 bands and football team and all kinds of activities. If you go to a poor neighborhood's school, you barely have books. You're using books that are 10, 20 years out of date. And so the local economy of a neighborhood determines the kind of education that people have. And that, again, perpetuates ignorance and poverty and opportunity. I was, like I said, I was very fortunate because of that program called Upward Bound. I still go every March to downtown over here to Washington, D.C. to talk to senators about that program, to say, hey, if that program has a 98% college graduation rate. So this is a program, they start kids in the 9th grade that are economically and socially disadvantaged, preparing them, and the kids have to want to do it, preparing them to go to college. So by the time they graduate 12th grade, they know what it takes to be in college and how to study and how you have to manage your time, etc. And they're academically prepared. So that part is still, there's still deficiency, but as far as the non-belief or the getting away from religion, that is a good news part. The problem is that they continue to believe in God, and now they don't have the tools for skepticism. They don't have the tools for critical thinking. So then the next silver-tongued preacher, missionary out in the street, or let's admit it, some cute girl, some Mormon cute girl that you're going, she is cute. Well, I'm just going to convert just to spend time with this cute girl. I mean, nothing converts more people than sex, than majority of people are not converted because of the philosophy or the logic of a particular religion. But unfortunately, then those kids are not prepared to go to sort of duke it out when it comes to questioning these folks, and then they end up in religion. That's why they go after you.
Hi,
So,
David.
Ari,
This is Lara here. I'm here with Ari, and thank you for taking this time to share, this important information with us. It's always so good, to refresh all this.
Yeah,
And
thank you for connecting.
my pleasure. So you said, that you are educating kids on critical thinking, and Ari and I are, always talking about that because we do that at home, and we have seen the impact, our children's education on that regard has had on other children, their friends and other family members, and would like to replicate that. And I would love to hear about your advice to get into those schools, because it has been quite the challenge for
It
us
is.
to
So
get those topics there.
great question, and I don't want to spend too much time, but I'm glad you asked that. So we decided we want to go to high schools and talk to kids, and what are we going to do? So we don't tell them that we are this hellbound atheists, that we are anti-religion, or none of that. What we say is, so part of what I do is I use the fact that I'm a CIO in a respected company, that I have a high-end position. I've partnered with a dozen of other professionals and Hispanics, and I tell them that are also non-believers and humanists and all of that. And I tell them, so I find a teacher, a sponsor. You have to go with the teachers. Teachers have a lot of power in schools. And so I find a teacher that is secular, or that is, that wants to have somebody come in their classroom so they don't have to teach for one class, you know. And by the way, it could be anyone. I've had history teachers, I've had English teachers, you know, any class. It doesn't matter, because you can always take skepticism and critical thinking in whichever topic you want. And then when we go there, we don't talk about religion or politics, of course, but we talk about questioning things and how we need to question everything. And we do a few magic tricks. So when they say, hey, I only see, you know, I only believe in what I see, you're like, no, 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 no. Don't believe what you see, because sometimes your eyes can fool you, and you show them a few magic tricks. And we bring some T-shirts and things like that. Again, we're targeting Hispanics, and so they bring us, and we do the presentations usually in Spanish and English, you know, sort of bilingual. If all the kids speak English, or most of them speak English, then we'll do it in English. Again, we're trying to encourage them and show them that it's important to speak the different languages. We teach them that this is your country right here, right now. If you're living here, there's no documented, undocumented. No. You're an American now. If you're sitting and standing here and you're living in this neighborhood, then this neighborhood is an American neighborhood, and you need to do, we say, you know, we teach them that they need to do what we learned in kindergarten, to say, what if everybody did this? And so if you see people throwing, you know, trash in the floor, well, what if everybody did that? And so on. And so, you know, what kind of community we want to live in, it's up to us to make that community happen. And so those are the kinds of things we talk about, and we bring T-shirts and water bottles and give, you know, play games and give them things. And we have teachers calling us back to do another one. Can you do another one? And so we make it entertaining for the kids, and we bring lots and lots of examples of why you need to use critical thinking. And so we do, for example, ESP, and I take one of their students, and I talk to them, and I show them. I put my hands on top and say, all right, think of a number between 1 and 3, 1 and 5, and the kid thinks the number, and everybody has their eyes closed. Another kid tells me in a year what the number is, and of course, what I do is I tap the kid in the head when I'm touching, holding his head. Tap the 3, 4, and so the kid yells 4, and the kids go, "Oh my God, how did you do that, ESP?" Little things, and so the kids come out thinking, yeah, skepticism is good and critical thinking is good, and want to learn more about it. And so we encourage them to, we give out videos, like we used to give them in DVDs, Here Be Dragons. If you look at that video, you have it in YouTube. Here Be Dragons, it's an example of critical thinking. So we talk about other things, and we tell them, look, anything that is true wants to be questioned. So if anything is true, it wants to be questioned. So, and we've had kids ask us really tough questions. I had one kid that said to me, so David, Mr. Tamayo, so you're saying that there isn't enough evidence for ghosts, but my aunt, who took me in when my parents died and raised me, when her husband died 6 months ago, she told me that she's seen his ghost 2 or 3 times. So is she lying to me? And I said, no, she's not lying to you. She sincerely believes that she saw a ghost that was her husband, but it doesn't mean that that's what it was. So I tell him, I said, how often do you go out and you see a shadow and for a second you think it's a person and you jump? Or you go in the woods and you know that in these woods there are bears, and you see a pile of rocks, and for a second there you say, oh, there's a bear, and then you're like, oh no, it's a pile of rocks. So you can confuse a pile of rocks with a bear, but you're never going to confuse a bear with a pile of rocks. And that is because we are tuned to look for agency. We're tuned to look for the who's that? You hear a noise, the first question is, who made that noise? And stays in your mind, and you try to find, we have to find rational ways of explaining things, and when we don't know, we make up stories. And that's what, so we try to explain those kinds of things to kids, and encourage them to stay in school. We offer them scholarships, we offer them tutoring, all kinds of things, and some make it, some don't.
Thank you, Ari and Laura. I hope that answered your question. Joe, you had your hand up. Did you want to ask or comment?
Yeah, this won't take but a second, and it's really has to do with pronunciation. You stressed pronunciation quite a bit during your presentation, and so I thought you would appreciate it. And I'm actually quoting a person who has a PhD in the subject, and the word is zoology. If it were pronounced zoology, it would have 3 O's in it. The correct pronunciation of that word is zoology.
Yes.
And again, the person who told me that has a PhD in the subject, and because I was calling it zoology.
Well, and English is a peculiar language because, you know, the present and past tense sometimes is the same. So I read a book last week and I read a book right now. You know, read and read are spelled exactly the same. And not to mention the things that sound very similar. You know, Mrs. Right, turn right, and she's always right.
99% of the people will say zoology.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Joe. Bill Norsworthy, you can unmute yourself and go for it.
Good. Thank you.
Hey,
David, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm kind of interested, you suggested, I think, that the main target market for your work would be teenagers, perhaps even seniors in high school. And I'm kind of curious about how far does that go? How long do you have before an adult person has decided, okay, I am Christian and that's all there is to it, and I don't want to listen to anybody telling me about critical thinking? So you've got a kind of a window there to reach your target people that you'd like to reach out to. And I'm curious to know, number one, what percentage of people do you think are actually reachable? And also, what is the best way to reach those young adults after they've left high school and maybe they haven't gone to college? How do you reach them?
So lots of questions there. I became an atheist. I was a diehard Catholic, but I became an atheist at the age of 43. And so to me, anyone that's sincere in their thought and, you know, and with themselves eventually will, given, you know, the proper evidence, will come into the conclusion of what we think about the mythologies of religious beliefs, etc., and supernatural belief in general. So I don't discard anyone that is in their 40s or 50s or whatever. I've seen people in all ages. We don't go for the very young because it's more difficult and it's more dangerous that someone may accuse you of, you know, brainwashing or creating sort of a scandal. You know, these atheists are trying to indoctrinate my children, and although they wouldn't complain when someone stands outside a middle school handing out Bibles. What we do is, so I work with also, I'm actually in the board of directors of Freedom from Religion Foundation. And it's a great organization, big organization that does a lot of wonderful work. And I let them, the big boys, you know, Freedom from Religion Foundation, they're big. They have lots of programs, etc., where they try to prevent those Bible handing outs, etc., sort of the legal aspect of it. We also work with the Secular Student Alliance. Now they do try to form groups even in middle school, so from middle school forward, and we work with them a lot. And we share scholarship. I help them screen for when people, they receive hundreds and hundreds of applications for scholarships, and so I help them read all of them. I read every year maybe 1,000 or more essays and things of the sort. It's really tough work, by the way, because you see so many worthy people there, you know, so many kids that are, you know, and some of course will break your heart with their stories and their stuff. But anyway, so we concentrate in the high school because they're more reachable, because they're a bit of rebels. And but even some of those are not as reachable as you might think. You have here in Fairfax County, Virginia, they have prayer groups. Pentecostal prayer groups in Spanish during lunch, and they sit down, and the girls wear long, they're not allowed to cut their hair. They have to wear long dresses. And oddly enough, these are the kids that get pregnant because they're never taught. They're not, they're never taught about sex or anything of that. And most often, and the part that hurts the most is that they're pulled out of school. A lot of them are, especially the girls, are pulled out of school at age 16. As soon as they're legally, they no legally can stay in school, they pull them out and they have them do a lot of the jobs that I mentioned, cleaning offices, things of the sort, because hey, we have family necessities, and why would you want to do that kind of stuff? I had one particular girl that I still think about and it makes me cry. This 16-year-old, very beautiful girl that was brains. She was all brains, straight A's. And so the after one of these sessions where I gave a presentation to the students, the teacher asked this girl to stay behind and asked her to give to answer some questions. And so the teacher asked her, what's your favorite class, math, and what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to work for NASA. I want to be a physicist, all this. And I'm like, oh my God, this girl is, I want to make sure she gets an education. I want to pay for her college. She's the best example. Mom, it's like, nope, she's quitting after next year, and she can either become a reporter or a model. Like a beauty contestant. And those are the two options, because I think that's what mom ever thought that was, and I begged the mother, I told the mother, I say, I'll tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. Your daughter will go to college and I will pay you the money that she would be making working cleaning offices for the time that she's in college. So it's not going to cost you anything from an economic point of view, and we'll pay for her college. You don't have to worry about anything. No, there was no reasoning with the woman, and the girl was taken out of school at 16 and disappeared from the map. I tried to visit their home. I tried to reach out to them, and there was just no doing. So to me, it's such a waste of a mind, such a waste of a life, perhaps. And so I'm hoping that this girl eventually might be able to get out of the grip, but it might be too late, because in a lot of these religions, well, reproduction is sort of job one if you're a woman, and the more babies you have, the more the better you are, supposedly. So we need to part of what we tell, and I've had teachers where I tell the teacher, hey, don't you have to go to the bathroom or something? And as soon as, and the teacher's like, why? I said, I'll tell you later. And so it's just a minute or so. I just don't want you to hear what I'm going to say. And then I tell the kids, look, I don't care if you want to have sex all you want. Have sex all you want. I don't care. Use a condom. Don't get pregnant. There's no reason. Get an education first. Have as many babies as you want in the future after an education. And I said, and oh, by the way, 0 is an option. If you don't want to have any kids, it's okay. Don't be pushed to think that that's a failure on your part, that you're less of a human if you're not reproducing. And so the idea is to show, and rarely do they have an adult saying those kinds of things. And I'm surprised I haven't been kicked out of school. I only had one principal who, no one ever questioned what a free thinker is. People think they know what a free thinker is. So when I say, yeah, I'm with Hispanic American Freethinkers, the principal who has to approve that is, no problem. And then, but one principal said, I want to see your slides before you present them. And I said, sure. So I showed him the slides, and there was only one slide that he objected to. And that was where I had a picture of these African kids that had a sign that said, please don't kill us, we're not witches, because there's a Christian sect that was killing kids in Africa, accusing them of being witches because, a chicken died and the kid walked by here 3 days ago. And so, we need to hack this kid to death with a machete. And so he was like, yeah, we don't want to talk about religion. So remove that because it said the word Christian. And I said, fine. So I removed the slide and presented the rest of the stuff. But yeah, it's hard to say. And different communities have different things. So I'm not sure that what we do here would work really well in New Mexico or in California or in New Hampshire or anywhere else, or even in Puerto Rico. I'm not sure, but so I think it needs to be more customized to what, to the local stuff, to the local needs.
So what percentage of people do you think are reachable
I would
for
say
for our message?
for a message that will change their minds, I would say 15 to 20%. A lot there. Part of the issue is that religion and culture are like this. And so anytime you go against religion, even if it's just a little bit, you're a traitor to your people, you're a traitor to your family. You know, why do you hate, why are you ashamed of being Hispanic? Why are you ashamed of being this or that? And people, a lot of atheists, Hispanic atheists, don't come out, not because they're afraid for themselves that they're going to be abused or anything like that. Not at all. They care a lot about what grandma thinks and more my mom thinks, and I don't want to hurt my abuelita. I don't want to hurt her feelings. I don't want to hurt my mom's feelings, because they're, you know, those two women have worked hard, and you know they have. So there's this great deal of respect that you have for your parents, especially your mother, and so a lot of atheists are in the closet. I know kids in high school today, at least 4 or 5 that are atheists. I mean, hardcore atheists. We have conversations and all of that, and they ask me for books to read, etc. And they go to church and they're in the choir and sing, and they're, you know, they are in the religion study groups, and they live 2 lives, which is really a shame. It's really sad that a kid has to do that, because then they learn that, hey, I have to have this duplicity throughout life.
And a lot of adults who do that too.
Yeah, and you see where that gets us sometimes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, we're almost out of time. Is there anything you want to say to close up, or?
Well, I want to thank all of you for this opportunity to talk about these things. I hope you learn a thing or two, a factoid here or there. And I'm glad no one asked me, well, what can I do to help? Just be inclusive, you know, just invite people, you know, and be a friend to Hispanics. The best way to convince anyone of anything is first to be a true friend, and then people will say, oh, but I've had people that tell me after a while they found out that I was an atheist and say, but you're such a good person. How could you be an atheist? That's the kind of thing you want to, you know. Exactly. So anyway, I just want to thank you all for having me here. It's really been a pleasure, and man, I like all those softballs that I got for questions. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Next week we will have, speaking of critical thinking, Dr. Linda Elder from the Foundation for Critical Thinking with us to talk about critical thinking. So,
she's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is.
But I really enjoyed it. I did learn things that I didn't know from your lecture, so I really appreciate your help with this. And
did you say critical race theory? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, don't even get me started on
that. Really. No, but that would be an interesting thing to have a discussion about.
It'd be a good topic to talk about.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Lawyers and doctorate students, so might be a little above our head, but anyway, we are looking for someone to talk to us about fascism and white supremacy. So,
oh yeah,
we are working on that topic. But anyway, thank you so much, and
count me in there.
Coming. And we'll see you all later.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for coming, Dave. Bye, guys.
If you are pleased with our programs, please tap the like button and then subscribe to our channel. Don't forget the bell so you don't miss any notices of new material. We usually post new content every week. See our created playlists to discover events thus far this year, or to see a list of topics and speakers from our rapidly growing and diverse collection since 1992.